I would like to call the Lee County Board of Education regular board meeting for the month of November to order at this time. And at this time, I would like to offer a moment of silence. Amen. At this time, I would ask you to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we have no public comments, so moving right along to our Lee County Schools vision statement.
Lee County Schools, in partnership with the community, will provide challenging learning experiences for students in a safe and a supportive environment. We are committed to academic excellence, technological innovations, social responsibility, and lifelong learning. Our success will be demonstrated by the achievement of our students and their positive participation in society.
Thank you, Dr. Coble. Moving right along to our Code of Ethics for school board members.
The board recognizes that collectively and individually, all members of the board must adhere to an accepted code of ethics in order to improve public education. Members of the Lee County Board of Education should avoid conflicts of interest and appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the board. Avoid the solicitation and or acceptance of gifts in return for advice or assistance on matters concerning the operation of the business of the board. Avoid the misuse of public funds. Avoid misrepresentation or falsification of facts, and avoid making confidential information public. The board accepts the Code of Ethics established by the North Carolina School Board Association.
Thank you. Moving right along to do I hear a motion to approve our agenda as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda for November the 5th, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the agenda as presented, signal saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Our agenda stands approved. At this time, I will call for the approval of our minutes from our called board meeting on October 3rd and our regular board meeting on October 8th, 2019.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes from our regular board meeting and our called board meeting from 10/3/2019 and 10/8/2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those for approval, signal saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Our minutes stand approved. At this time, moving on to our chairman's report. I will say that we've had a lot of congratulations going on lately in the school system. Congratulations to Deep River, who won head of class, to her and her school, and Miss Lundy. Also, congratulations to the assistant principal at Deep River, who won assistant principal of the year as well yesterday, Miss I can't say it, Merkel. No. McNichol. Congratulations to her. There's a lot of things going on in our school system as always. I want to say thank you to all the volunteers and all the bands that came to our Brick City Capital Classic band competition this past weekend. And I know the Lee County High School was our field was full of bands and parents and supporters. On that same note, I invite everybody to come out to the Brick City Bowl this Friday night for Southern Lee versus Lee Senior in football as well. So I have no allegiance to either team. So other than that, I want to say thank you to the Sheriff's Office, the Board of Elections, and all those that have a hand in making sure our election days go smoothly, especially with our school system being used. And I think it's wonderful that our students get to see that process as well. Moving right along, I want to save my voice, turn it over to the superintendent for his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I'd like to ask two of our assistant principals who are here from W.B. Wicker Elementary School, Ms. Brewer and Mr. Kaywood, to come forward if they would. It is with great pleasure tonight that I award the Clean School of the Month Award to W.B. Wicker Elementary School. And looking back, it was a pretty close competition, but your staff did a great job with putting everything together and got first place this time. So you can say this is the first place School of the Month award for W.B. Wicker. So congratulations. And I know your staff works really hard. Anything you'd like to share with the board?
I mean, all I can say is every single day we're filled with people that come dedicated, full of passion. I mean, despite different challenges or things that come up, it's just been a continued honor working with us, the staff that we have at W.B. Wicker. As far as our custodial team, we're just amazed with how much work that they put in every single day. I mean, no matter what, they're not only are they working hard, but they're energized, they're ready to go, because at the end of the day, we're here for the students, and that's what gets us through every single day. So thank you.
And those days happen to be on the weekends too. I know for a fact on Saturday and Sunday they come in and make sure things are clean, because I've seen them there. So.
That is yours to take with you to display, and congratulations again. Thank you. Final part of my report tonight, Mr. Chairman, is the accountability update, and as I think we have a little bit later to approve with school improvement plans, which you all saw last time for East and West, but all of our schools have been working on their school improvement plans, and it's been their focus, and I've heard a lot of good things at our C&I meetings in regards to that. That concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Moving right along to curriculum and instruction, Dr. Stephen Coble, committee report.
Mr. Chairman, we had two curriculum and instruction meetings in October. The first one was the Curriculum and Instruction Committee met at East Lee Middle School on October the 9th, and the following items were mentioned. Gail Smith gave a brief update on the math rubric for middle school advanced classes. Also, the math rubric is a guideline that they're using for students in the advanced 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. She also gave a brief AIG update for the criteria on the K through 12 testing. And Anika Squires presented the MTSS data team will use the SECO program to first identify students that need additional support through the program by reviewing classroom behavior, teacher staff recommendations, office, and etc. This is the last scheduled middle school C&I meeting for this 2018-2019. The next C&I meeting will be December the 4th at Sandley Middle School. On October the 23rd, the C&I meeting met with elementary schools at Greenwood Elementary. And just to highlight a few things, B.T. Bullock talked about their teachers implementing best practices from reading resource. Broadway, more of the classrooms moved from self-contained approach, and the teachers are pleased with the change. Deep River conducted their first vertical planning day to meet to discuss common expectations and goals, and they pronounced it very beneficial. J. Glenn Edwards held a curriculum bingo night, but during that, each grade level of teachers hosted parent sessions where they shared reading and writing practices, strategies, and tips with the parents. Greenwood will be partnering with the St. Augustine Project and the Kiwanis Club to provide opportunities for math and reading tutoring. J.R. Ingram planning events for the benefit of our community and parents to include a first responders and military appreciation breakfast. Tramway organized a school-wide collaborative art project with the artist Daniel Dancer and called the Art for the Sky. Floyd Knight, classroom staff members participated in a 2-day Department of Public Instruction-led training regarding the North Carolina Extended Content Standards. Throughout the training, staff members were exposed to new teaching methods and strategies, as well as connecting instructions to the standards. Warren Williams successfully started to implement zones of regulation in elementary classroom. This program helps build executive function in the brain. W.B. Wicker had their first PTSO meeting, had their first fire safety week with kindergarten, and also had their dedication ceremonies. Along with this, the next CNI meeting will be November 13th at Lee County High School for the high school curriculum. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Moving right along to Facilities and Technology, Dr. Lynn Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Hilliard is going to report that committee, F&T committee report this evening.
The Facilities and Technology Committee met on November 4th, and we discussed the cooling tower bids for Greenwood Elementary School and J.R. Ingram. It was the consensus of the committee to award the cooling tower bid for Greenwood Elementary and J.R. Ingram Elementary to Superior Mechanical Services in the amount of $442,400. This item will be placed on the 11/5/2019 agenda under the consent agenda. We will meet again on November 21st at 4 o'clock at the Heinz Building.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving right along to our Finance Committee, Dr. Lynn Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. McCracken is going to present the Finance Committee report.
Mr. Chairman, there were several items on the Finance Committee meeting held on October 29th, 2019. First one, School Board Attorney 2019-2020 contract for legal services and bond forfeitures. Discussion was made to extend bond and forfeiture hearings not to exceed $8,000 for the remainder of the 2018-19 school year. And discussion was also made to approve a contract for the January 1, 2020 through December 31st, 2020 with all the compensation the same as the 2018-19 school year, including your bond forfeiture hearings. This will be on the consent agenda for the meeting tonight. Second item, the budget resolution. Ms. Jones discussed that due to the state budget has not been approved, Lee County Schools will be operating off the 2018-2019 budget. Once the budget is approved, the amendments will be completed to update the 2019 and 2020 budget. The third item was the business modernization letter of intent. I have to say that Ms. Jones gave a nice lesson on what this was to Dr. Smith and I and the members that were there. But as directed by DPI, a letter of intent with a selected vendor must be completed by each LEA by December 31st, 2019. This will ensure that sufficient funding and support for transition to an approved ERP or Enterprise Resource Planning System will be included within SBSM budget, as they will be covering the implementation fees and subscriptions for the first year of each LEA. This is the operating system that HR and Finance will use together. This letter of intent gives the superintendent and CFO the authorization to complete the letter of intent as required by DPI by the due date given. Another item on the Finance Committee report is the Lee County Schools lease agreement with our mobile units. This lease agreement was shared with the committee and will be submitted to the board as FYI. And finally, the monthly board expense report was shared with the committee, which will also be available to the board as an FYI. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. The next Finance Committee meeting will be held January 30th, 2020.
Thank you, sir. Moving right along to our Policy Committee, Ms. Sherry Womack.
I'll make this as fast as possible. The Policy Committee meeting met, and we have went through a whole about 2 or 3 pages worth of policies. We are recommending that the policies be approved, and before I go through these numbers, it makes it very clear for you guys. Some things that come down for the policy committee are things that are general statutes, and then there's things that come down from the North Carolina School Board Association. All of the policies in which I will be reading tonight, every one of them were recommendations that came down from the North Carolina School Board Association in conjunction with the general statute changes. Policy number 1500, governing principle, safe, orderly, and inviting environment. Policy 1600, governing principle, professional development. Policy 1700, governing principle, removal of barriers. Policy 1800, governing principle, stewardship of resources. Policy 3102, online instruction. Policy 4240, 7312, child abuse reports and investigation. Policy 4270, 6145, concussion and head injury. Policy 4520, 6120, student health services. Policy 4540, 6140, student wellness. Policy 5220, collection and solicitations. Policy 6220, operation of school nutritional services. And Policy 6230, school meal and competitive food standard. Policy 6315, drivers. Policy 7430, substitute teachers. Policy 7820, personnel files. Policy 8220, gifts and bequests. Policy 8340, insurance, and Policy 8350, fixed assets inventory. Those following policies that I just listed are actually policies that today, when we get to the action part of this meeting, we will be recommending that those be approved on the first reading versus the second reading. For clarification on that, our policy currently states that when you propose a new policy, you must have 2 readings before it goes into effect. These were such minor changes that it does not require us to have to do it twice. The second page of policies that we have, which will be will be presented for action tonight, are Policy 2010, Board and Superintendent Relation, Policy 2300, Board Meetings, Policy 4040, 7310, Staff-Student Relations, Policy 4325, Drugs and Alcohol, Policy 4333, Weapons, Bombs, and Threats, Policy 4334, Use of Unmanned Aircraft Drones, Policy 4400, Attendance, Policy 4525, 6125, Administered Medications to Students, Policy 5015, School Volunteers, Policy 5210, Distribution and Display of Non-School Material, Policy 7100, Recruitment and Selection of Personnel, Policy 6130, Licensure, and Policy 7130, Licensure, Policy 7240, Drug-Free and Alcohol-Free Workplace, Policy 7241, Drug and Alcohol Testing of Commercial Motor Vehicle Operators, and Policy 7410, Teachers Contract. Our next meeting is scheduled for the 27th of November. I'm assuming that's a holiday, so I'm hoping that is a typographical error. And that meeting will only be in effect if we have any more changes from the North Carolina School Board Association.
Thank you. Thank you for all the committee reports. At this time, I will call for an approval of our consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, approve the consent agenda as presented, signal saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Consent agenda stands approved. Moving right along to our new business, Ms. Sherry Womack, for your first section of board policies.
Do I have to read them all again? Like I said before, I'm just kidding. How about policy numbers 1500 through 8350? I suggest that we suspend policy 2420, which is the adoption of policies, in reference to the 1500, 1600, 17, 18, 3102, 4240, 7312, 4270, 6140, 4520, 6120, 4540, 6140, 5220, 6220, 6230, 6315, 7430, 7820, 8220, 8340, and 8350.
Since this comes from committee, there's no need for a second.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve the policies as presented?
So moved.
All in favor, signal saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you.
Again, that was approved for, in lieu of having to do a second reading. The following policies will require second reading And the purpose of having the second readings is so it gives opportunity for the community, teachers, and staff to be able to provide input if they disagree with something within the policies. The following policies are, I would like to move that the following policies be approved for their first reading. Policy 2010, 2300, 4040, 7310, 4325, 4333, 4334, 4400, 4525, 6125, 5015, 5210, 7100, 7130, 7240, 7241, and 7410.
Thank you. Again, since he's coming from committee, there's no need for a second, but I do need to entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
All in favor of approving the board policies just read for first reading only, signal saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Board policies passed their first reading. Moving right along to number 3 of our school improvement plans with Eastleigh and Wesley. At this time, I will call on Dr. Andy Bryan.
Mr. Chair, as following with policy, these plans have been reviewed, and we have not received any comments for any changes. It'd be staff's recommendation that these plans be approved by the board for East and Wesley.
All right. Barring there's been no recommended changes or anything as such, I will entertain a motion to approve the school improvement plans as presented at the last board meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the school improvement plans at Eastleigh and Wesley as presented.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor of the school improvement plans for Eastleigh Middle School and Wesley Middle School, signal saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Thank you. At this time, I will call on a board member for a closed session.
I move that the Lee County Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of discussing information that is privileged, confidential, or not a public record under NCGS Section 143-318.11A1.
Is there a second?
Second.
All are approved for closed session, signal saying aye.
Aye.
Before we stand in the closed session, Brandon, the head custodian of W.B. Wicker, actually walked in the door, and I think, Brandon, if you'll stand up so we can give you a round of applause for Clean School of the Month. Brandon is a former custodian at Sutherland High School and is now our head custodian at W.B. Wicker. So thank you for what you do, and at this time, we stand adjourned in closed session. At this time, I would like to call the Lee County Board of Education back to open session. Do I have a action item for personnel at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Lee County Board of Education approve the Human Resources Report as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the Human Resource Human Resource agenda as presented? Say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. All right. On that note, before I call for a motion to adjourn, I'd just like to thank the entire board for coming and being a part of Head of Class, W. Wicker dedication, and all the events we've been having around town. Your support of these events to our teachers is definitely welcomed. On that note, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.